Very welcome along to the Trader Chat. It's Johnny Ward with Flynn, Goward. Izzy Phillips from Racing Moment is with us. Let's cut to the chase here, Izzy. You're sleep deprived. There was a rave in your locality Saturday night, which you allegedly didn't partake in, but you stayed up for the Super Bowl, watched the Rams beat the Bengals, and you're a little bit tired this morning.
Safe to say I am just a little bit tired this morning, yeah. Very, very sleep deprived, but it was so worth it.
How was the NFL?
It was so good. So good. I know we're going to get into it in a little bit, but yeah, really good game.
We've loads to talk about on the show today. We'll talk about the betting from the Super Bowl. The Bengals, if you were on them outright at fancy prices from the start, obviously a little bit disappointed. Some striking performances in Britain as well. Maybe an Arkle winner on display on Saturday, and obviously the football as well. We're going to talk the UK Jockeys Championship as well. Brian Hughes absolutely careering away. Is the title being run in the way it should be? Should it be done on prize money? We're going to talk the Mark Todd video, which is obviously controversial, the emergence of Charlie Deutsch. We're going to have a racing review. We'll talk the Super Bowl. We're going to talk golf, the football at the weekend, Manchester United letting punches down again. And we will look forward to the racing ahead, some Cheltenham thoughts, rugby and some darts. Let's start with you, Flynn. What were you up to this weekend?
I was up to this weekend. Not sleeping much, but not because of a rave or the NFL. I've got a 5-month-old child who loves to wake up for a feed at 3 a.m. at the moment. So we were up at 3 a.m. last night, giving him the feed. Although I didn't have the temptation to put the Super Bowl on, I would still rather be feeding the little man. But yeah, it was an action-packed weekend on the sports front. But I think we want to go talking points first, Johnny, because that's a new kind of addition to the show where we will talk about the last week's news, mainly racing based, but we will include some sports stuff in there. But talking points to get started.
Yeah, and I was thinking this morning, the Irish Times, big racing story on the back of a racing article, Renaissance of the Betting Ring, Irish Racing's vinyl revival, and be interested to see what the betting ring is like at Cheltenham. But let's get to talking points. You wanted to talk about Brian Hughes. Made me feel old this morning because as I was reading the Racing Post article, it's 20 years since he kicked off with Kevin Prendergast. I actually do remember Brian riding on the flat, being a very, very promising young rider. I think the point you want to make, Flynn, is that, you know, he's reached 150 winners this season. He's miles ahead of, I think, Harry Skelton is second, but you have reservations about how the track is, how the actual title is managed in terms of winners over prize money.
I do indeed, purely for the fact that he's probably not going to have a ride at Cheltenham. He's probably going to go elsewhere to kind of boost the numbers. There'll be easier rides elsewhere, and equally, he just won't get the rides at Cheltenham. The issue I've got with the whole Jockeys Championship is that there's only real proper conversation about it at Sandown when it's actually announced towards the end of the season. And how can the kind of pinnacle of being a jockey just be talked about a couple of days in the season? It should be a running theme throughout the season. And I don't understand why the Trainers' Championship and the Jockeys' Championship are recorded differently. I can't understand why the Trainers' Championship is on prize money and the Jockeys' Championship is on numbers. Doesn't make any sense to me. Surely, if we want to include the prestigious races, and surely the best jockey of the year should be the one who's won the big races rather than the one who has won the most races. It would solve the issue with jockeys trying to kill themselves to ride so many winners and go to so many different tracks. And it would also get us talking about the Jockeys Championship at the bigger meetings. I understand that the negative side of that would be that it's all about Cheltenham and it's all about Aintree and that type of stuff. And also some jockeys don't have the chance to get on these proper horses. But surely the best jockeys should be on the best horses, and therefore we are talking about the best jockeys in that case. I just can't understand why it's not run the same as the Trainers' Championship myself.
Yeah, and I think as much as we haven't had, any sort of a battle this year, I'm just looking at it now, like Brian Hughes is effectively double Harry Skelton and Sam Twiston-Davies. But I guess, Izzy, if you did have a jockeys race, you can't get to a situation where jockeys are basically going like flogging themselves all over the country to get rides in bad races. It's not glamorous. You can see why some jockeys wouldn't have any interest in actually doing this in the first place. And if you did have Flynn's idea, it would make them kind of obviously focus more on the big races and probably make it more of a title race throughout the season.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I think, like you say, the issue with that is that the prize money, obviously, in quite a few races isn't great. So you've got to then sort out that issue, I think, as well, because what's then the attraction for, jockeys to turn out to have those rides if, at least at the moment, like everyone goes towards you getting further up in the championship. But if it's not going to count at all when you're only going to get, I don't know, a couple of £100, then there's kind of less of an incentive to kind of get that winner, I guess.
Yeah. And I'll stick with you, Izzy, while you're there on this. The Mark Todd video, which emerged, obviously has, prompted reaction on social media, as if everything's reacted to on social media these days. What did you make of it?
I mean, obviously, like you say, everything now comes through the court of public opinion. I think ultimately, if, he's apologised for it. So we know, you don't apologise for it if you don't think you're in the wrong. Clearly, it was wrong. The video in itself's really distressing. Like, the horse that's obviously being hit is awful, but you can see the actual horse in the background is really shying away and really afraid. It's just not what we want to see. We've had a couple of these recently in mainstream news, obviously, like this whole animal cruelty. It just isn't nice. And I just think that when you've got people high up in sports, they have to represent the values of the sport itself and the people in the sport. And when you're seeing this, ultimately, the bottom line is it's just so disappointing.
I'm not from a racing yard, Flynn, but I certainly would have given an errant bullock a few cracks of my stick when I was a kid to get him to go into the field or whatever. And I was talking to a guy who works in racing, and he was like, nobody wants to do that. We've all done it to make them go forward. Maybe the person maybe there needs to be a stronger rider on the horse. But basically this person was saying that, we don't want to do this, but like, this isn't all that abnormal. You need the horse to move. The optics are obviously not good though. I'm not sure Aidan O'Brien would ever do anything like that to a horse like that. From listening to the stories of Ballydoyle, it's all about getting the horse to do it by, I suppose that nice relationship, whatever. But at the same time, the hysterical reaction, Flynn, seems to be a bit over the top.
I don't know if it's over the top, because I think the optics are terrible, and perception is such a huge part of our sport. We were just speaking before we came on, Johnny, weren't we? And we talk about when we're actually inside the sport. I think we would be silly to think that this doesn't go on in most racing yards.
Yeah.
This type of treatment of horses, it's just reality. Whether it's right or wrong is a completely different case. I have no experience working with horses, but my perception is that it is wrong, and that we can't be hitting horses. It's so draconian. And to be honest, if that is the case, then I just don't want to watch horse racing. I really don't. And I think that a lot of people will have that opinion. Some people will say that no, because that typically doesn't hurt horses. Whereas Mark Todd in this video showed smacking a horse with a branch. I don't know whether that hurts the horse, but the optics of it looks absolutely terrible.
But are the optics of the whip bad?
Not in my opinion, because I've actually held the whip and I've hit myself with it and it didn't hurt whatsoever. And I'm thinking, well, if I can't hurt myself with the whip, it's not going to hurt a horse. But if I smack myself with a branch, I can imagine it probably hurt a little bit. But the optics are bad of the whip, probably. But just talking about this video, just the fact that it's kind of normalised by some people within the industry, like bloodstock agents coming out on Twitter and kind of normalising it a little bit, I think it's just really, really poor. On the whole, to be honest, and I think that we need to have a hard look at what is right and what is wrong, because we just think that this stuff probably does go on in racing yards, and I think the people involved in the sport will say that it probably does, sadly.
Yeah, and let's be fair, the optics of racing have become a major issue. We've had a very, very difficult year and a half or so of things that we would have preferred not being in the paper. So I respect the idea that, we are fighting a PR battle almost day to day, although I do think racing can be very, very insecure about what it actually has to offer. And we will revisit this topic coming up before Cheltenham as well, because, every time, I guess, every March that comes along, racing has a look at itself, and the wider media often focuses on negative things rather than how good the sport is. And the sport was very good on Saturday. You weren't racing, playing, but we got some pretty good performances, I thought. And in terms of the small fields, I was reading that as much as the fields were small for some of the main race Saturday, actually turnover was quite good.
It certainly was. I think just been through the card at Newbury. I think Bravemansgame was probably performance of the weekend. Went off at 8 to 11, put in a lovely performance, giving weight and a beating horses that were probably ahead of their own marks as well, to be honest. So
much to the delight of Paul Nicholls.
Well, yeah, exactly. Who's not been in the best of form, but that seems to turn around a little bit this weekend. And sometimes when you are out of form, your top class horses do just get the job done. They show their class that comes through. Bravemansgame is now 11 to 4 from 130 for the Festival Novice Chase. Obviously, would be taking on Galopin de Champs there. You'd think that would be big if Galopin de Champs does end up taking on Bob Ollinger in the Turners. but he just looked really professional, didn't he? He missed, I think it was the second or third last, and he lost a good few lengths. And then he just came back alongside. He was ridden with such confidence, and I thought it was a really good performance, to be fair, on reflection.
Absolutely, yeah, and reassuring for Nichols as well. Obviously, he did have a disappointing Clondazobo done in the Denman chase. What did you make of this, Izzy?
Yeah, I mean, he struggled. Obviously, he had 2 winners on the day in the end, Nichols. And I mean, credit to him for turning his horses out, even though there was obviously this cloud of trainer form and what was happening with the hay. I mean, Bravemansgame was so impressive. I mean, generally, obviously, Eldorado Allen was the one to take away. The fact he hasn't got an entry in the Gold Cup is it the Ryanair that's preferred, I think. So I'm really happy for the Tizzards there, really, because obviously they've had a difficult couple of years, and to see him come bouncing out like that, I think was really positive. Royal Pagaille, I think obviously it was just perhaps not quite soft enough, but I still really do like Royal Pagaille for the Gold Cup.
Yeah, David Jennings giving him a good mention in the Racing Post this week as well. Glory and Fortune, Flynn. He's 50s with Star Sports for the Champion Hurdle, and I know it's probably a daft suggestion that he could win it, but he's not a million miles of epatante, obviously, on form, and he's probably progressing even at this stage. I know his rider Stan Shepherd was very, very confident about the horse going into the big hurdle race, won at 20-1. I've actually seen worse massive prices in terms of a place bet for the Champion Hurdle.
I think he should be a massive price for Champion Hurdle, personally. I thought it was a really poor race.
Right.
Yeah, Betfair Hurdle. Glory and Fortune winning at 21 was a great result for the book, but also good in the places. A lot of big prizes in the places. I like to believe it ran a fantastic race in second. Broomfield Berg was the one that was well supported. It was 9-2 in the morning, into 4-1, and just kept shortening and shortening. I think went off around 3-1, 11-4 mark. Was really well supported all day. But yeah, it wouldn't be a race that I'd be looking forward to the Cheltenham Festival for me personally. Just in regards to Eldorado Allen, when Izzy was previously talking about him, now 14-1 from 33 for the Ryanair, and we put him in at 25-1 for the Gold Cup. I'd be very surprised if he didn't go Gold Cup. I know he needs to be supplemented, but it does make sense to me to up him in trip, and he shows a vast improvement in form. And then to bring him back to 2 mile 5 just doesn't make any sense. I think he's probably worth a go, or maybe miss the race this year, maybe go to Aintree, something like that, and then come back for the Gold Cup next year potentially for him.
Edwardstone 2-1. Star Sports absolutely ducking Edwardstone in the Arkle after his victory, which we recorded at. He was sent off 10-11. Very, very straightforward for Alan King's horse. I actually don't think the Irish Challenge in the Arkle is that great. I think Blue Lord and Riviere de Tail are both beatable. And lo and behold, the Supreme and the Arkle, the 2 novice races on day one, we've got a British trained favourites, Flynn.
Yeah, we certainly do. The GB are going to put it up to you this year, Johnny. I'm making a claim that we are going to put it up to you. Probably not in the handicaps where you've plotted them up all year, but in the races that matter anyway, we'll put up a decent fight. But Edwardstone, I thought was really good here. There were lots of murmurs in the office. I watched it in the office on Saturday, and I thought it was really impressive. We went 9-4, where most fans went 5-2, 11-4. I actually wanted to be under it. Head of trading actually turned around to me and said he didn't think it was that impressive. I couldn't believe it. I thought he jumped really well. We put the race.
Who's the head of trading?
That would be Dave Jolly.
Name him and shame him.
Yeah, Dave Jolly does not like Edwardstone. So we're actually 2-1, which is joint top price. It is pretty general, but it's joint top price now, Edwardstone, for the Arkle. In terms of the result for the race, obviously it was a poor result for the race, well backed into 10-11. Into 2-1 from 11-4 for the Arkle. I think that we're going to put up some fight this year, to be fair, when we do get to Cheltenham. But yeah, it was a decent performance from him on Saturday.
Edwardstone fan, is he?
Yeah, I wasn't going into the race. I was looking, thinking maybe third time lucky might get the better of him this time around. Maybe Brave Siaska could sort of come out as a bit of an unknown quantity and perform quite well. But I wasn't surprised, but I was happy to be wrong. I think he did that so well at the weekend, and Alan King's hitting a nice little bit of form now.
He is, and we need this as well. We need the big yards, I think, coming up to the festival, hitting a bit of form. Just briefly on Naas, Flynn, a couple of horses I think we'll see at Cheltenham winning, not surprisingly winning, both were odds on in Ellie May, who I think is actually a very solid bet for the Mayor's Chase, considering I didn't think she got a great ride in the race last year, and she's probably concertista to beat. But in any event, I think she's still an each-way price for the mares race. And Billaway, obviously the regular in the Fox Hunters, he won at 2-5. There was a fascinating performance by Brazil. I tipped up the horse Una Flow in the first race, the 4-year-old hurdle. Brazil won by 13 lengths. It was a staggering improvement on Anthony he'd shown. But afterwards, Warwick Roach, I think, was saying that he's likely sticking him at home, whereas he looks an obvious red winter horse to me. But some interesting performances at Naas, and I should mention Journey with Me as well, Flynn. He won at 4-11, workman-like.
Yeah, Journey with Me to start with. I was not impressed with Journey with Me at all, but I've not been impressed with Journey with Me at all, like since he's first started running. I actually went shorter for the Albert Bartlett to start with. I went 5-1 for the Albert Bartlett, and I went the same price for the Ballymore. We're actually the same prices now. I know that the trainers come out afterwards and said that they're going to go the 2.5 mile route or the 2 mile free route in the Ballymore. Just not for me. I mean, if a Ginto goes there, I really like Ginto. I'm not sure he's going to end up. I'd definitely rather Ginto over Journey with Me. Journey with Me just looks an absolute podder. I know they've got the same ownership. They've got horses for the Albert Bartlett. I think it's Jerry Coloum, who could be going that route. Yeah. So there are other horses that could go that route, and trying to sort them out is difficult. But I wasn't impressed with him. In terms of Ellie May for the mares chase is 130. That's second into Concertista. After being a bit of a negative Nelly on this race when it first got added into the calendar, it actually looks like it's going to be a proper race. It produced a really good race last year.
Stop!
Yeah.
I'm going to get easy on this. Sorry, continue your nonsense here. You're too young to remember the old days.
Concertista's in there at 5-2, a proper horse. Ellie May's in there at 130. Mount Ida, I mean, I hated the race last year when Mount Ida went in. It just should have been out of the back of the telly and was obviously plotted up to win the race. River Details in there obviously won't go silver forever, but it does give these chasing mares a chance to go and perform on the big stage. The Glancing Queen's been out in kind of Saturday races this year. Gin or Lime obviously won that eventful race at Cheltenham. So there are some proper mares in there, and I do like the fact that they're getting this opportunity all their day in the sun.
Okay. Izzy, you are the fairer sex. Tell me that this mares thing is a load of crap. They've mares novice race, they've mares hurdle, they've mares chase. You'll probably have a mares bumper, a mares novice chase. You'll probably have 10 mares races by the time I'm popping out of this mortal coil. I'm not a fan of them at all. I think, it basically just dilutes the good races. Are you a fan, though? Do you like Vega, whose son, Facile Vega, is obviously going to hit the track at Cheltenham as well? Do you like these mares having a chance to showcase their talents, albeit against mares only?
I think that I get what you're saying. Like, where do you stop? Because you could then equally have a mares Gold Cup, a mares champion, so where do you stop with it? Like you say, does it just pull horses that could have otherwise gone in some of the better graded races? But I think actually having one or two on a card is quite nice, because it does just perhaps give that little bit of variety to the races. And like you say, it does give, though, some mares then a showcase to be able to sort of showcase just how good they can be. I don't quite know what the actual science behind it is in terms of whether they are at a disadvantage to male horses. I don't quite know. Like, obviously there's a science behind with humans, but I'm not quite sure what the science is.
Well, that's very interesting, because the mare's allowance for honeysuckle is definitely something that I think is a little bit, I guess it's a little bit controversial in some respects, that Zana here, a 5-year-old gelding, would have had to give her £7 at Leopardstown, which I think even physically is a bit of an anomaly. And you'd see horses like Shattered Love, it would be bigger than a lot of geldings getting weight as well. So I actually think that I'm not sure they even do know the science in that. And I think, Flynn, that's something that might be looked into going forward, because it does seem to be something that just is accepted, but not necessarily actually looked into that much.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the mare's allowance, I'm not sure how long it's been around for now, but it's been a talking point. But I think it's mainly been a talking point since Honeysuckle's just been battering the male horses. So she could be doing the other mares a disservice, and the fact that she may eventually get it taken away, or at least neutralised in kind of the top Grade 1 races. I think it should maybe be a little bit less in proper Grade 1 races, because they've proved that they're up to that level. And once they prove that they're up to that level, maybe they should only get £3 or something like that. I think that would be a little bit fairer. It just takes away a little bit when they're getting £5-7. When you want to talk about the greatest champion herders of all time, you think, well, what's Honeysuckle actually rated? Because you have to take the allowance into account, don't you? So I just think that when you get to the top class races, maybe it could be looked at for that.
Yeah, okay, let's look at the football over the weekend. Liverpool staying in touch, beating Burnley 1-0, a gritty performance there. I think the main talking points, I have to say, I was surprised how short Man United were at home to Southampton, 4-7, give or take. That came unstuck, and I don't think they really deserve to win the game either. They've been consistently poor basically all season, but there were some startling results. I think Everton beating Leeds 3-0 was really, really striking. Everton were in danger of being sucked down into the relegation zone. But now by virtue of that result, Leeds you're kind of wondering what's going on with Leeds. It's been a really, really disappointing season for them. Obviously, Man City beat Norwich, were still in with some sort of a chance. I think Newcastle are edging out of trouble. How was it like for the firm?
Well, Leeds are struggling, aren't they? They're only 5-1 to go down now, Leeds. So for the relegation, obviously, Norwich are down pretty much. Watford are 6 on. They're pretty much down. And then you find for that third place. So Burnley 4-11, Newcastle 4-1, Brentford 9-2, and then Leeds 5-1. Everton are in there at 15-2, although they're a decent result, obviously, at the weekend. So Leeds are really, really struggling. You mentioned the top 4 race there. Arsenal, my beloved Arsenal, are into 5-4 from 7-4 to get in the top 4. The big drifters there are Spurs, out 7-2 from 2-1 after being beat 2-0 by Wolves. United are also out 2-1 from 13-8. We actually laid a decent bet at 7-4 on United, hence why we went 13-8. Now we're back out to 2-1 after the weekend result. And just for outright for the league, this obviously isn't a foregone conclusion now, because City are 10 on, but Liverpool are only 6-1, 6-1 from 13-2. They're just showing some fantastic form, Liverpool, and looking really solid at the moment. I know they've got 6 or so points of the game in hand, I think it is, to make up on City, or they'll get within 6 points if they win their game in hand. But I'm not saying that's completely over yet at the moment. Just one more thing to talk about would be the Champions League. We do have the Champions League coming back this week. Got some fantastic games. Starts from tomorrow and Wednesday. In terms of the outright, City are there at 5-2. Bayern Munich in there at 7-2. Liverpool are 5-1. Chelsea 15-2, and then your 9-1 bar. We've got to reach the final. We've got the top scorer there, where Lewandowski is 4-7. But I think Sebastian Haller actually leads the way in there at 5-2, and then your 8-1 bar. We've also got the nationality of the winner and the English team to progress the furthest, where City were obviously 5-4 favourites. So plenty of Champions League markets to get involved in, as it will be European fever throughout the midweek this week.
What price England to win it?
8-11. So obviously all the English teams coupled would be 8-11. Germany 7-2. France would be 9-1. Then your 9-1 Spain. Any other nation is 12, and Italy 16.
Back in the primitive days of gambling, you will remember The Simpsons when Homer got on a good run in the NFL, and he was very annoyed because he rang up the phone line and there was pay per second or whatever, and he was being told that there was a game involving the Cincinnati Bengals, but it was sin, and so forth. And Simpsons fans will remember it didn't happen for the Bengals last night, Izzy. It looked like they were going to win the Super Bowl, the perennial underdogs. You stayed awake for it, and it was all worthwhile because it was late drama.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest with you, the whole game was dramatic. So in your first quarter, Odell Beckham Jr. came out, caught the first touchdown, and, you know, really started to cement himself looking like a MVP of the match, if I'm honest with you. Second quarter, another huge catch from Odell. So he had, at this point, 52 yards on and a TD. So it's looking really good. There was blocked extra points, and everyone was wondering, you know, could that have been a decider in the game? And then right before the half, Odell goes to catch the ball and pulls up, you know, with a knee injury, I think. So it started to suddenly get a little bit dramatic, and Bengals were playing well, but they didn't sort of seem to be firing on all cylinders. Odell and Stafford were having a great time. So the start of the third quarter, I think, was where it really kind of ramped up. And the momentum completely swung for the Bengals. So they had, within 12 seconds, a 75-yard touchdown. And this is where the controversy started, because on that touchdown, there was a face mask call that perhaps should have been called if you're a Rams fan. That's an all-day call that would have pulled that back. And then basically later on in the game, there was another defensive holding call that was called on the Bengals that they feel shouldn't have been called. So it was a bit tit for tat on the calls. It was funny because I think really up until the third quarter, the refs didn't really seem to be, it was almost as if they didn't have any flags in their pockets. They just didn't seem to be throwing them. There was even a fight on the sideline when Burrow got pushed out, and they didn't call any calls there either. So it seemed to be in that fourth quarter, there was a lot of sacks on the quarterbacks, and, you know, quite a few funny calls. So it swung back and Rams just took it in the end, but it was properly to the wire.
Yeah, it sounds almost like the officials might have been a little bit wary of the occasion of like being too flag happy, but like controversial calls. And in fairness, generally in American football, there isn't that much controversy in terms of flags. You know, you flag on the play, fair enough, but like these were debatable calls.
Yeah. And I mean, usually as well within the game, like you say, because they have so many replays and they check things, you don't tend to get these kind of hard luck calls. And you're absolutely right. I think on the occasion, there is this let them play kind of mentality that happens in the kind of more championship games, because you don't want a game decided by a rough call. So it was, I think, that they held off for so long. That then they perhaps did start to call a few at the end that were a bit more questionable, but there were certainly calls earlier in the game that should have been called. But yeah, right down to the wire. Donald had a great game. Obviously, there's now questions about whether or not he's going to retire. And then your MVP was Cup, who had an amazing game. So really, all of the players really turned up for the Rams.
1 to 3 words. Who wins the Super Bowl in 2023?
Green Bay Packers.
Brilliant. That and I think a lot of people will be agreeing with that. Unlike the Cincinnati Bengals, perennial kind of contenders, I guess. Flynn, how did this work out? I think the book was very good going into the match.
It certainly was. Just quickly, for the Super Bowl next year, it is on site already. Green Bay Packers are 14-1, Izzy. So 14-1
nice.
If you want to bet your own team. The favourites there are Kansas City Chiefs at 13-2. The Bills are 7-1, 10-1 for the Rams. Bengals are 12, so they're much more than they were last year. Packers in there at 14, same as 49ers, and then 16 bar. We've also got the 2022 draft up as well. Aidan Hutchinson's favourite there, 11-8, 2-1 Neil, and 3-1 bar. In terms of the anti-post book, it was a fantastic anti-post book for us. We laid the Chiefs heavily. I think the Bills are also losers off the top of my head. So very, very good looking for the anti-post book going into the actual Super Bowl. As Izzy just mentioned, Cooper Kupp, who I'm told is a wide receiver, I would not know that for love nor money, was the MVP. Both quarterbacks were shorter, so I think it was even money 2-1 for the two quarterbacks, Joe Burrow being the 2-1 shot. So Cooper Kupp was much bigger price for that. I was told that he was 5-4 favourite for the most receiving yards, which duly copped. And like I say, Chiefs were the main losers in the anti-post book. So a very good night on Super Bowl front. I wasn't up for it, but when I spoke to the NFL guys this morning, they were very jubilant about it all. So they seem to enjoy it anyway.
Yeah, we also have a lot of chat about Aaron Rodgers. Will he stay with the Packers as well? So lots to, I guess, debate and discuss between now and the start of the NFL next season. Just in terms of the rugby and golf at the weekend as well, Flynn, really, really dramatic stuff in the rugby, apart from the England's win, obviously, in Italy. Wales holding on to beat Scotland despite being hammered by Ireland. Ireland nearly putting it off in Paris, just coming up a bit short.
Yeah, exactly. So pre-tournament, Scotland were very, very popular, actually, but they're now at 16-1. So looking at the Six Nation prices as we are in running, France at 4-7, Ireland at 7-2, England 11-2, and then Scotland at 16 and 40 bar. You've mainly got three runners now, haven't you? You've got France at 4-7, Ireland at 7-2, and England at 11-2. In terms of the games this week, obviously we've got Scotland, France, we've got England, Wales, Ireland, Italy. So those are the big games. The big one's probably going to be Scotland versus France, to be honest, because that's going to be a tight enough match. 9-4 for Scotland, 22-1 the tie, and then 2-5 France. You'd think that England should beat Wales, being 2-13, and Ireland is pretty much a non-match with Italy being 500 on. We've also got the Triple Crown winner and the Grand Slam priced up on site to have a look at that. But that was the Six Nations. The other one we just wanted to briefly talk about was the golf. We had a fantastic Phoenix Open, great clip of two hole-in-ones at 16. They've got a huge grandstand around 16 in the Houston Open, and it's sponsored by Waste Management, which are a company over there, and they promote recycling and all that type of stuff. So where at 16, they'll get these refillable cups. And when the hole-in-ones were going in, they were just absolutely launching these cups full of beer onto the green. So there was great scenes there. Scotty Scheffler got the job done. 30-1, he went off, and he was actually tipped off by Ben Coley, and that tends to shape our book a little bit because he's just such a good tipster in the sport and life, and people tend to follow him in. So it wasn't a great result. He won in a playoff against Patrick Cantlay, who would have been a slightly better result. Was a stat leaderboards going into the last round with Matsuyama, Kupka, Cantlay, Scheffler, Chauvet, etc. all there. Was a really good watch, but not a great result for us, Johnny.
Yeah, and the rugby does return obviously the weekend after next, and it's fascinating to see Ireland getting at least that bonus point to help them stay in touch. 7-2 shots for Star Sports now, but are reliant on results elsewhere. Just looking ahead briefly, we have the Ascot Chase, and obviously Cheltenham thoughts. If you've got any, Flynn, I think it was obviously a quite enough weekend, but two good British contenders obviously win the novice races, so what have we got coming up in your mind?
So just in terms of Cheltenham, we saw an interesting bet this week for the Mares Hurdle. I just wanted to mention actually, weirdly enough, Echoes in Rain. So it's been pulled out of the Champion Hurdle when we had bets earlier in the week, but the market doesn't seem to have reacted to the Mares Hurdle prices. We have obviously reacted. We've gone 6. If Echoes in Rain goes here, it has to be nearly favourite, surely, Johnny.
I think she's a bit of a softie. I thought she found nothing at Edwardstone, but I mean, what? She has extremely good form. Even that run behind Zanair would probably put her up there. And remember that Honeysuckle ran in this stupid race before. That's because it's an option. I mean, run them against each. Anyway, what price is Echoes in Rain then?
She is 6-1 with us. There is obviously bigger elsewhere. She's 16 in places. I mean, I just can't understand that price. She's got form, which is, I would say, level with the antipodes favourite. Tell Me Something Else around 3-1. So that would be a Cheltenham for me this week. I'll actually hand over to Izzy because you're going to Ascot on Saturday, aren't you?
I am. I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm off to the Betfair Chase. There's a few that I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm actually going with my dad. We've actually had our eye on St Calvados for a little while. We just feel like there is a big race in him. So hoping to see him go. You've also got Mr Fisher in there, who's obviously no mug. And then you've got Dashel Drasher as well, currently still in the market, Ascot Specialist. So that could be a really good race, actually.
Thanks a million for that, Izzy. And now I think we're going to let you go back to bed.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go back to bed now, have a nice little nap, and then maybe wake up later and try and sort of feel a bit more human.
You'll probably be having like nightmares that you forgot about Trader Chat. Flynn, that's a regular for you, isn't it?
Not quite. I think what the viewers want to know, Johnny, though, is it's Valentine's Day today. What's your plans this evening? Surely you're wining and dining someone over in the land of Isle.
Gotta go to the shop, son, and get some flowers or something. Anyway, I've left it late, to be honest. I was, I don't believe in Valentine's Day, and to be fair, my various partners in life, I've yet to date a girl who really takes it seriously as well. So I don't know. What have you done?
I've been very boring, and I've actually gone to M&S and I've got a little 20 quid meal deal. But typically, I don't like steak, which is a very obviously weird thing. I know exactly. So I've said that the most loving thing that I can do is try and get into steak. So they had these 2 sirloin steaks as part of the kind of 20 quid meal deal with some fizz and stuff. So I bought the steaks. I'm going to try and cook them. And then I'm going to try and convert myself into a steak lover. And I think that's the best gift I can probably give on Valentine's Day, to be honest.
That's one of the most unromantic things. You went for an M&S kind of meal deal for a score. Izzy, I mean, I don't think anyone's impressed by this.
I mean, M&S, at least it's an M&S meal deal, not like a Tesco meal deal.
Your standards are all collectively very low here.
To try and like steak, I feel we can do better than that. Come on.
We can. Can we do better than that next week on Traders Chat? That was Flynn, Izzy, and Johnny going through a bumper weekend and a bumper week of talking points. Shall be back next week. We're edging ever closer to Cheltenham. What are we now? We are we're just over 4 weeks away. So there we are. And we're buzzing for Cheltenham already. And could we have 2 British winners in the novice races on day one? Stranger things have happened.